I think over the last 6 months, we've proved that vaccination is a very good way to get this pandemic under control. It's reached a point where so many people are vaccinated in the United States that we've got to urge people now to come and get vaccination. So I'm here at Hy Vee in Waverly to thank Hy Vee throughout the state of Iowa and the other states that they're in for joining the vaccination program. And up until now, they've had plenty of people to come in for vaccination. But now they've wanted to help get more people vaccinated by giving a $10 certificate for people to come in and get vaccinated. And hopefully this will encourage other people to get vaccinated. I, as a United States Senator, I want to encourage people to get vaccinated. Now, I didn't get vaccinated right away when I could because I had COVID and I had some antibodies. But I did get vaccinated February, March period of time, not only for my own health, but for the health of other people, because everybody that's getting vaccinated gets an opportunity to help bring this whole thing under control, and the entire country benefits. And when the United States has some excess doses now that we can sell to other countries, then obviously that's going to help get the global pandemic under control.
So how do you feel about how Hy Vee has handled this task of vaccinating all these people?
Yeah.
And I should say that I was vaccinated by Hy Vee people during a clinic down at the Waterloo Center for the Arts myself. So
well, I'm sure glad you got vaccinated. I want to thank you for getting vaccinated, because you're helping other people not only by setting an example, but you're not going to be a spreader.
Right.
And so I compliment Hy Vee on getting into this program and taking a lead and having their pharmacists vaccinate people. And now I even applaud them a second time, because not only are they participating in the program, but they're giving certificates for people that maybe need to be incentivized to come in and get vaccination. And so they're helping out, because to get the next 10 or 20% of the people in America vaccinated, we're going to have to work a little harder. And I compliment then Hy Vee for helping us work a little harder.
I just had one. Don't know if you've answered it once already before, but have you given any thought to running for re-election, and are you getting close to making an announcement?
Would you believe that you aren't the first person that asked me that question? I will have an answer for you in September, October, early November, in that period of time, because I want you to know that I don't think about it every day, and I want you to know that I very much enjoy my work. I think I work hard. I've been continuing my 99 county tour that I've done every year, 40 years in a row, to go all 99 counties and answer questions for people. And then I'm in Washington, D.C. Only time I missed a vote in the last 27 years was when I had COVID. I missed 6 votes. Otherwise, I've cast 9,000 votes without missing a vote.
Of course, it mentioned your possible candidacy, but how about the race in general? I mean, if you do run, you do have a primary challenger in Jim Carlin, a senator from Sioux City, and then also on the other side, Dave Mulbauer of the Waukon area is in. Abby Finkenauer, former congresswoman for this area, is pending, and maybe even see on your side of the aisle Ashley Henson, maybe your grandson Pat, or Mr. Whitaker, as well as Sidney Axie and J.D. Schultz. And what do you think about the possible race?
The only thing I control is my own candidacy, running or not running. I don't control anything else, and I don't pretend to control anything else. So I wouldn't have any comment on any speculation, because you could probably speculate on 50 people.
Senator Grassley, there's a lot of states that are incentivizing people to get vaccinated as they're seeing their rates low, like Iowa is. Ohio's obviously doing that $1 million or college tuition paid for. Other states are sort of trying to follow suit. Do you think Iowa's at the point where they need to do this yet?
Not at this point, and I don't know that we'll ever be there, but of course that's going to be the governor's decision. And I think it should be the governor's decision. I think we ought to have 50 different ways of doing it. I don't think anything ought to be dictated from Washington on this point. But if she decided to do it, I would back that up naturally, because I want to get this virus under control. But I just will leave it up to her.
Senator, what are your thoughts on the legislation in Nevada that could bump the Iowa caucus from first in the nation status?
I believe that we have gone through this several times in the last 20 years, and I believe that Iowa's still going to be first in the caucus. I believe it ought to be first in the nation. And I believe as long as the Republican and Democrats in Iowa cooperate on that, along with Democrats and Republicans cooperating in New Hampshire to be first in the nation primary, and as long as we have this bipartisan and bi-state cooperation, I believe come winter of December 2023 or January 2024, you're still going to have people flocking to Iowa to participate in the caucus, and we're going to be first in the nation.
Since we're at the pharmacy and we got started a little early, can you share what you talked about with prescription drug pricing as well?
Yeah. I've been working for a year and a half now on getting drug prices down in cooperation with Democratic Senator Wyden of Oregon. And our bill has many facets to it, but the main one is to make sure that year-over-year increases in drug prices can't be more than the CPI, the Consumer Price Index, which over a long period of time would be something 2% or under. And I think it's a very legitimate approach. It does other things, like do away with the donut hole in Part D Medicare. It puts a per annual cap on out-of-pocket costs at $3,100, and it does a lot to protect pharmacists from being cheated by PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers. Does a lot of other things, but those are the key points.
You brought this bill up before. Do you have hopes that it'll pass in the next session?
This year or next year, yes, I have this hope. But I think one thing that there's kind of a process that you have to go through. I think Democrats would rather pass a bill that Pelosi's promoting in the House of Representatives, which I don't think can get 60 votes in the United States Senate. But I think they have to realize that they can't get 6 votes in the United States Senate before they go to a bipartisan approach. But I think that's the Grassley-Wyden bill is the only bill that can get to the President of the United States.
You mentioned that you getting back to COVID-19 here. You mentioned that you had the disease and before that delayed you from getting the vaccine for a while. Can you describe to people who have not gotten the vaccine that what this disease can do to you if you don't get vaccinated?
Well, I'm maybe a lucky one. I was asymptomatic. At most, I just had fatigue. But most people aren't that lucky. Or maybe most people are that lucky, but the ones that aren't that lucky are hospitalized, and I can tell you a lot of problems that result, not only from the hospitalization, but once you have gotten out of the hospital, there's things like not having smell, not having taste, having aches in your muscles or things like that. And so that nobody should take any chance. You can get a vaccination, protect yourself from it. You don't have to worry about those things.
Senator, I wanted to ask about the situation in Israel with the Palestinian conflict. There's going to be a march in Cedar Falls tomorrow afternoon called a March for Palestine. I know that traditionally the government has been very supportive of Israel. Do you see that changing right now?
No, I do not. I think for 2 reasons. Number one, the United States always needs a friend in the Middle East, a very volatile part of the nation, and because of oil, we're very dependent upon it. And secondly, the United States has always supported democracy, and Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. And I don't know what the march is about tomorrow, but I know this, that there would not have been any trouble between Hamas and Israel 3 weeks ago if Hamas had not started sending rockets into Israel. I don't know, except for protecting themselves against Syria and against Hezbollah in Lebanon. I don't know that that Israel takes offensive action against anybody unless it's to protect themselves. And firing rockets into Israel is wrong. If that hadn't happened, there'd be 242 more people alive in Palestine today than there is today.
You support Netanyahu's government, even though he's potentially under fire right now in his own
Well,
country?
I'm going to let Israeli politics take their place, but I think that they're putting together kind of a coalition of people that's not going to last very long because they're so divided. Their only unity is hate for Netanyahu.
And I have one last one for you, Senator. The January 6th commission that's still being that was blocked not too long ago in the Senate. It passed the House, but what was your qualms about commission? Even though it was set up to be split right down the middle, 50-50 representation, and independent from Congress, like the 9/11 Commission.
First of all, when I first started thinking about it, I was favorable to it if they would broaden the jurisdiction to other federal properties being attacked, like happened last summer in so many different cities. They didn't do that, and then I started looking at other reasons before or against it. So I looked at the fact that the Rules Committee and the Homeland Security Committee of the United States Senate has been studying this thing almost since January the 6th, and they're going to issue a report in a couple weeks. So I don't know why duplicate their studies. Some of us as individual senators, either by myself or in cooperation with other senators, have started some investigations, of course very minor compared to what a commission or a committee does, but we're still doing it. But more importantly, we have prosecutions of 455 people so far, and we may have more than that coming up. And those when all the information comes out from those prosecutions, we're going to have ample information of what went on at that particular time. Particularly when they go after. I don't know the names of the organizations, but there's a feeling that maybe 10 or so people from a couple different organizations maybe thought about doing these things. Maybe they didn't know if they could do them, but then they ended up doing them anyway. And the extent to which those people maybe was a nucleus for what happened, I think that's the core interest that I would have. And that's going to come out in these court trials that we have.
I think the organizations you're looking for are the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers.
Whatever you say.
Okay.
One other thing I want to add to you, because I just thought of this as I was standing here answering that question in regard to Israel. The United States has been very supportive of Israel for the reasons that I gave you. We need a friend in the Middle East. We need to support democracy. But our supporting Israel is only to support Israel because it's in the national interest of the United States to do that.
In what way is it in
Well, I think promoting democracy and for our own national defense, in the sense that having a friend there is very important in a volatile part of the country, a volatile part of the globe.
and military bases, that sort of thing.
Well, we don't have military bases there, but we would get easy cooperation from Israel. On that. But I think the most important thing is you couldn't tell this from Hamas, but I think you got to realize that with what happened during the last half of the Trump administration, when we have peace agreements with 4 other nations other than Egypt 40 years ago, 25 years ago Jordan, we've had 4 new nations just very recently declare peaceful relationships with Israel. And that tells me that things are changing from the policy that both administrations had before Trump that said you really can't get any more peace between Israel and other Arab countries because the Palestine problem is standing in the way. What Trump accomplished proves that Palestine was not standing in the way of peace agreement between other Arab countries and Israel.
Do you think the conflict has a chance of being resolved in our lifetimes?
Sure hope so. That's all I can tell you.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator.